and diploma have been harmonized by the Ministry of Education.
The Ministry of Education has denied harmonizing the degree and higher national diploma. They said the Ministry of Education only sent a memo to the National Council of Establishments to institute a bridging program for the H.N.D holders, and the proposal was approved.
Now, let's bring some perspective to all of this. But before we go into giving you the background to understanding this topic and other aspects of technicalities involved in it, let's bring in our guest in here. We have the Deputy Rector Admin, Yaba College of Technology, Moruf Adebaki. It's good to have you in the studio right now.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Now, let us have an understanding. The issue of B.Sc and issue of H.N.D, well, they say they are equivalent. B.Sc or its equivalent, which is H.N.D from what we know and what we see every day. But if we have to get to the quality and the concept and the prestige, are they really different in true terms? Can you give us a perspective to understanding?
Well, thank you very much. Of course, the two degrees are different in the sense that they are produced by different levels of tertiary institutions. B.Sc from the university and H.N.D from the polytechnics. But then beyond that, in terms of the level of training and of course the performance of their graduates out there in the labor market, I don't really think the difference is pronounced.
Okay, but let me just put it there on the using the language on the streets generally. Is the B.Sc higher than the H.N.D?
To those of us who train them, we don't really think it is higher. Okay. But just like you have said, to the man on the street there, over the years, he has been made to believe that B.Sc is higher. And unfortunately too, the government appears not to be helping matter, because even in terms of placement, it shows that if you are coming with a B.Sc, you are placed higher than your counterpart that is coming with an H.N.D, except in some disciplines like engineering and maybe allied studies.
And so isn't that worrisome, really?
It is, because just like you have said in your introductory brief, that it's already affecting the psyche of an average admission seeker. It has also gone into the various parents. Most parents don't even want their children to go for H.N.D degree because nobody is happy getting to the employment market and you are being discriminated against just because you have passed through a polytechnic and not a university. So it's very, very worrisome.
Okay, we'll come back to this. Let's bring some perspective to this now. A university is a higher level educational institution in which students study for degrees and academic research is done. Now, a polytechnic, on the other hand, is an educational institution where students offer courses that deal with instruction in many industrial arts and applied sciences.
Universities are regulated by the National Universities Commission, that's the NUC, while polytechnics are under the National Board for Technical Education, a principal organ of the Federal Ministry of Education specifically created to handle all aspects of technical and vocational education. That's both NUC and MBTE are parastatals under the Federal Ministry of Education.
Now, there are 25 federal polytechnics and about 40 federal universities in Nigeria. Others are owned by states and individuals and corporate bodies and so on. Now, in the past, government tried to harmonize the discrimination between the degree and diploma. For instance, the Olusegun Obasanjo administration introduced that the Yaba College of Technology and Kaduna Polytechnic changed into degree awarding institutions. This was not implemented as the Umar Musa Yar'Adua government revised the proposal.
And most H.N.D graduates have to face discrimination as a result of their diploma certificates. This includes inequality in salary grade level, stunted growth in the career environment, especially as it affects promotion. That's not a good thing, really. You want to work at par with your colleague and be promoted. perhaps at the same time, if need be.
Yeah, let me bring in Maruf in here. Now, you see, we're saying that the universities are regulated by a certain body and the polytechnics are regulated by a certain body. Yeah. But from the inception, were they meant to be equivalent? Were they meant to be the same? Were they meant to be on the same pedestal?
From inception, they were not meant to be the same.
All right.
You know? Ideally, the university person, just like you have said, is a high-level manpower, while the polytechnic is expected to be middle-level manpower. That was the initial concept. But over the years...
Why was it the initial concept? What was the reason behind it?
Well, we feel that Nigeria needs to grow technologically. Apart from those that will design the machine and bring them here, you need people to maintain the machine on a regular basis. So those that are trained for the maintenance aspect of it are the polytechnic graduates, while those that are trained to even design in the first instance are the university. So that is where the sharp difference comes in. But what we are saying is that we don't have to be the same, but allow me to grow to any level. If I am from the polytechnic, demand from the university should also be allowed to grow to whatever level. You know, the situation where you now say demand from the polytechnic, when you get to a particular point, you cannot move further, whereas the one from the university will move beyond that. Is what is creating problem, and it's already affecting.
But from what you've just described now, are you saying the curriculum is different for an engineering student, for instance, where in the polytechnics you're trained to maintain the machine, and the university you're trained to design? So you're saying there's a difference in their curriculum?
Yes, there is. There's a difference in the curriculum, but that difference does not necessarily bring about that dichotomy. I am saying that even with that difference, you are trained for something that is different from what I am trained for. So I should be allowed to grow to the peak, any level, while you should also grow. So you can't be me and I cannot be you. Don't stop me.
All right, now if I get what you're saying, originally these are not meant to be the same. You have your role, I have my role.
That's correct.
Now, if that is the case, why are there agitation as to why a polytechnic person or somebody who has an H.N.D in certain course, as the case may be, has to get to the same level a B.Sc person gets to, if that was the original plan?
Well, what I'm saying is that, yes, they differ from inception. But I'm saying that wherever you find yourself, for instance, an H.N.D person will start with level 7. But as he grows along that line, he should be able to reach, if the maximum is level 17, he should be able to reach that level 17 on his own chosen path. While the B.Sc person should also be able to reach level 17 through his own path.
But I think before you have, those are like superficials of the fundamentals. Perhaps the fundamentals is what we should concentrate on here. If the curriculum is designed to make you less important, so to say, as it were, then the curriculum should be dealt with. Perhaps the disparity or the bridge now should be closed between the curriculum of the universities and the curriculum of the polytechnics.
I don't think the curriculum is designed to make you less important. The curriculum is designed to make you perform a function that is different from that of another person. It doesn't make you less important to that person. It doesn't.
All right, but is this all about the issue of prestige? Is this just about prestige to say, okay, if a B.Sc person is allowed to grow to level 100, as the case may be, polytechnic should also be allowed to? Is it about prestige?
Well, one, yes. Two, you see, don't forget that even the man that is an H.N.D holder and is not allowed to move beyond a particular level could affect his morale. Because even from the point of entry into the various universities, as of today, the requirements are the same.
As of today, but it wasn't like that.
It wasn't like that initially. Initially, it wasn't like that. Yes. Initially, it wasn't. But as of today, the requirements are the same. So what you now find is that on every 10 candidates seeking for admission, 9 wants to go to the university. It is when they are unable to find their way to the university that they now come to the polytechnic. Because that is what we have caused to their psyche.
But are we not back to the issue of the fundamentals again? Now you have the cutoff mark is the same for all applicants now. But perhaps I want to go to a school where I also want to study what I would have loved to study.
That's correct.
Either in the university
or
the polytechnic.
Yes,
so
yes.
Back to the issue of curriculum.
Yes. If you are saying the curriculum should be redesigned, no problem. But I'm saying that there is really nothing wrong with the two curricula. They are designed to achieve different purposes. Do you understand? But that does not make one less important to the other. That is just
where, for instance, in the polytechnic, you have a choice to study maintenance of machines.
Yes.
And you have a choice to study designs of machines.
Yes.
Maybe something like that.
Yes.
So you are at par with your colleagues at the university.
Yes. You are. If you go there, even in the university, you can also be trained to maintain machine. You can have B.Sc in machine maintenance if you like, you know. If you have B.Sc in machine maintenance in the polytechnic, what differentiates the two of you? You know, I'm just saying that, yes, the university person is trained for a purpose. The polytechnic person is also trained for a purpose, but one is not necessarily more important than the other. If you are talking about the degree they hold, you know, at the university you now move higher. Masters, PhD. Of course, if you have a master's and I have a B.Sc, of course you are higher. But if you have a B.Sc and I have H.N.D, you are not necessarily higher than me.
But with an H.N.D holder, if you want to go for a master's now, you have to do a PhD.
That is where the challenge is. We are now saying that what is wrong in a polytechnic awarding a master's degree? What is wrong in a polytechnic awarding a PhD? It is because you are crossing their path. That is why they are now putting that barrier. That no, we didn't train you. Another sector trained you. Therefore, for you to come and join us, you have to do a bridge program, which is a PhD. You know,
to prepare you for
their own. Even within the university, if you have a first degree in another discipline and you need to have your master's in a different discipline, they still ask you to come and do maybe 1 year.
Except it's within the same faculty.
Yes.
Then
if you are crossing faculty,
even within the same faculty, sometimes you are required to take some courses at the undergraduate level to beef up.
Yes.
Okay, we have joining us on phone now, Danny Kere, the Department of Psychology, University of Lagos. Danny Kere, it's good to have you join us right now on TVC Breakfast. Now, we're talking about this dichotomy between B.Sc and H.N.D generally, and we have in the studio here Deputy Director Admin of Yaba College of Technology. We have certainly talked about several things. Now, from your perspective, the B.Sc and the H.N.D, were they originally meant to be the same?
Well, thank you, Mike, or whatever. Well, I'm of the Department of Philosophy. Let me make that correction, not psychology.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. Then the next issue will be the question of the dichotomy between B.Sc and H.N.D. Well, B.Sc suggests is a bachelor, is a degree, and the other one is a diploma. What? The various institutions are actually established by various acts. We need to understand why they are put in place. You know, the question of B.Sc and H.N.D, the parity. Well, I think we need to look at it from the point of view of what this institution was actually established to do. Yes. Now, if truly what you want is a degree, you know the degree awarding institution. So why not go for a degree? If what you want is a diploma, then you know the diploma awarding institution. That is why you are going for. So the question of after getting a diploma, then the next thing is, oh, we are the same level, and all of that. Whereas chances are that you do have, you might not have done the same, courses in terms of the units and all the rest. I think that is what we should be looking at this thing. So it's not a question of who is more important and who is not more important. You know, the polytechnics are as important as the university, but they are set up for different programs. And they have their various methodologies of getting these things done.
All right.
Some are actually more practical oriented. All right. The other ones seem to have more of the theoretical background. You know, even though they have, the practical courses too, So I don't think there is any issue about it. Recently, you begin to hear of polytechnics are, agitating to be converted to degrees. And when you take out the staff in the various institutions, the qualification for becoming a staff is different. It differs from one institution to the other. I know that the Yaba College of Technology, you can count how many PhD holders that are there. But as we speak today, apart from maybe coming in as a graduate assistant, the minimum qualification to enter the university, particularly the University of Lagos, you must have a PhD. So you are not looking at all of that. We are just talking about, we have to award this, we have to award that. Nobody is saying that the polytechnics are not good enough. Nobody is saying that they are not competent. But the question of the comparison between H.N.D and B.Sc, I don't think is anything to worry about. People know the institutions that award the various certificates, and the one you are interested in, you should go for it.
Except, of course, when somebody who has an H.N.D wants to do a master's that we're talking about, is required to go through some preliminary before the particular master's, because you think it's not your product?
It's not just the H.N.D you have such issues with. Even those who hold degrees, like the man with you has mentioned, if you are moving from one discipline to the other, the tendency is that you might be asked to take software media, so you might do a PGD in order to have a little orientation in that particular area. So it's not just a question of the H.N.D stuff, but there are institutions that admit students with O.N.D as direct entry. Though University of Lagos will not take you with O.N.D. They can accept NCA, but they don't take O.N.D.
Why not?
Other universities that do that.
Why not? Why would you accept an NCE holder and not the one with a diploma?
Well, I wouldn't know. I think that question should be meant for the university management. I'm not part of the management. But I do know that with NCE, you can come into any of the education programs and perhaps maybe an aspect of creative art. But ND, I know that one is a no-go area. Why, I cannot tell. But there are other universities that I know University of Guinea, for instance, will admit somebody with O.N.D into their direct entry program. Even University of Port does so many others. So it's not that would be maybe one of the, don't forget that University of Lagos is a peculiar university considering its location and the kind of the applications that they get. People, everybody in Lagos who just want to be there, they don't want to get out. So that might just be a form of elimination process. I don't know. I'm not speaking for them. I'm only trying to imagine what would be responsible for that.
Okay.
Right? But that's not to say that the O.N.D is not important. It's not to say that the H.N.D is not important.
Okay. All right, Dr. Danekere, we'll come back to you on this, gentlemen.
All right.
Now, let's have other perspectives as we get along. Now, the polytechnic system was originally inherited from Nigeria's colonial masters. Now, the history of higher education in Nigeria itself dates back to the year 1932, when the British government established the Yaba Higher College in Lagos.
It was to provide semi-professional qualified persons in medical, engineering, and allied fields and secondary school teachers. However, the UK intended the system not to be more than intermediate institution to train technologists and middle-level manpower, hence the establishment of the first polytechnic, that's the Yaba College of Tech, in 1947.
Well, Maruf said that earlier on, that it's really meant for the middle level. But however, now the UK system of education limited the H.N.D to be only equivalent to a bachelor's degree without honors. Now, this means that the H.N.D at that time was only equivalent to a pass in the university system, even if it is the best grade in polytechnic, which is a distinction.
You see what we're talking about? So even if you have a distinction in the polytechnics, it is assume you have a pass in the university. All right, this is unjust. People have said this unjust disparity continued to create ill will in the British educational sector until 1992, when it was abolished under the Higher Education Act. Hence, all the polytechnics in the UK were subsequently elevated to conventional universities. So there are no polytechnics awarding H.N.D in the UK anymore. So they all award degrees or their equivalent.
That's a big one there, and it is just about all right, the UK, where we copied this system from, they have changed and they've moved on, so let us change and move on. So you go to UK, you copy, you come to Nigeria and you paste, and let's move on. Is that really what we're trying to do here? Because it seems with the UTME now, which has harmonized the entry procedure requirements into polytechnics and in fact, all higher institutions in Nigeria, it seems that is a step towards harmonizing the system towards one direction.
That's correct. And I also feel that it will go a long way to even shaping our technological development, because people are running away from those institutions just to avoid this discrimination you mentioned. So there are people that are, in fact, these days, an average applicant prefers to go and do a single honors degree in the university than to come and do engineering in a polytechnic, because he's afraid of that discrimination. An average parent would prefer to allow, the best an average parent will want his child to do in any polytechnic is H.N.D maybe. So that with that H.N.D, if you are lucky, you get direct entry admission into university and then you move on from there. Not to go and do H.N.D, and at the end of the day, that child begins to curse you for exposing him to this discrimination.
Okay, let's look at the duration now. For a diploma, you have 2 years. You have 2 years. So the polytechnics offer a 2-year courses of study leading to award of the national diploma H.N.D. After this, students are expected to go for a 1-year industrial attachment to enable them acquire requisite on-the-job and practical experience before proceeding to the higher national diploma H.N.D program, which also runs for another 2 years, making a total of 5 years spent.
Yeah, correct.
Compared to that same 5 years now, if you had gone to the university,
yes,
that will also take you 5 years
that's
to
correct.
5 years to acquire the degree. You have 2 years for the O.N.D, 2 years for H.N.D, then industrial attachment for 1 year. That's 5 years.
That's correct.
So what's the difference really in terms of duration?
There's no difference per se, because even the man in the university does not take 5 years as stretch. He still goes for industrial attachment for about 6 months.
Within that same 5 years?
Within that same 5 years, he still goes for industrial attachment. So in terms of duration, there's no difference. In terms of duration, there's no difference. I'm not saying that a B.Sc has to be the same with H.N.D, because they are trained for different purposes, just like Akelia said. But I'm saying that allow him to grow to the peak wherever he chooses to stay, rather than telling him that if you get to a particular level, unless you go and convert to B.Sc or whatever, you cannot move beyond that level. That is where the problem is.
When you have spent even
for entry
number of years studying the same course.
Even for employment purposes, you see some employers saying no. If you have H.N.D, even at interviews, you say if you have H.N.D this way, B.Sc this way. From that point, you have already created bias in the mind of the two of them. So when they eventually pick the job in that organization, they are not even looking at each other as the same. And it's going to affect their morale. And okay, of course, productivity will be affected too.
All right, give us a perspective to this. You are an insider in the polytechnic or in that system. Are you in support of the move to convert some of your institutions into a degree awarding institution?
Well, if you say some, no problem.
Okay,
if you say some, but I'm not necessarily in support of converting the entire polytechnics in Nigeria to university. I would rather prefer that allow those polytechnics to also award higher degrees. You can be a polytechnic and still award a PhD. It depends. It's a matter of improving your facilities, human capital development, and so on.
All right, let's have Dan react to this. Dan, you've heard what what Maruf said here. H.N.D should be allowed to award PhD and perhaps, of course, masters and perhaps PhD itself. What's your take on that?
Well, I don't really have issues with what the institutions award. No, but I want to start by saying that it is not a question of the number of years you spend on the program that makes the program, because in primary school, you spend 6 years. You will spend more years than the university in terms of, training. So that you spend 6 years does not mean that you should get a particular, certificate and others are getting. Each institution is established, for a particular purpose. And I think we should not mix the purposes, And it is just that we are in an environment where we over-glorify certificates. That is just the challenge we are having. Otherwise, the polytechnic is as important as the university. As we speak today, Nigerians now hire the services of, technicians. Like electricians, tilers, even bricklayers and the rest from Benin Republic and other places. And in those places, you find out that some of them are even trained in such institutions. All right? Now, so we should begin to emphasize the importance of the various things that they are doing in that realm, not a question of the certificate. As for certificates, the difference is already set out by the various, laws establishing this institution. The university is established to award degrees. The polytechnic is established to award, diplomas. If they want to upgrade, in terms of certificate awarding, they should equally upgrade the facilities that are in the system, and it equally affects the entry requirements, even for the staff. I've just told you that when you look at the number of staff in each of these institutions, look at their qualifications. They vary. That is what makes the difference between the primary school and the university. If it's just a question of the years, the primary school spends 6 years, the university spends 4 years, except for special courses like engineering, you spend 5 years, law and the rest. You right? So it is what you are established to give that will determine your entry requirements. All right? So there's nothing wrong with upgrading polytechnics to any level, but that will only affect even the members of that. It means that some of them who are there now might not be qualified at the end of the day when we get to that level, because I don't see how you are going to train a PhD student with your first degree.
All right, perhaps another thing that needs upgrade is the societal value, really, because that's what it boils down. That's the bottom line. It's the value that society.
That challenge of, okay, you have H.N.D, you can't go beyond this, at workplace. It's just a question of the workplace issue. Otherwise, if you have an H.N.D and you know that you are worth the certificate, you will be very proud of it. I don't see any challenge with that. I'll come out back.
Okay, let me come back to Maruf in here. There's a report recently credited to the Minister of Education, Adamu Adamu. So let me read it here. He said that the two most polytechnics, Yaba College of Technology and Kaduna Polytechnic, will change their nomenclature as they will be known as City University of Technology, Yaba, and City University of Technology, Kaduna. What's your reaction to this?
Fantastic. I have said it earlier. You can convert some of the polytechnics to do universities if you know they have the facilities and they have the human resources to handle it, but not converting the entire polytechnics in Nigeria to university. And I don't have anything against that. So if
now, but if we have to go to the nitty-gritty of it, because you said earlier on from what we're discussing that the curriculum for these courses are different.
That's correct.
What would it take when it comes to the curriculum that will meet up the B.Sc level or the degree awarding status of your institution?
Curriculums are not even things that are sacrosanct. They keep changing. So there's nothing wrong. Even as we are talking now, we are even reviewing curriculum of some of the courses in the polytechnics. So there are things that changes with time, with development and so on. So curriculum is not sacrosanct. It can be changed. It can be reviewed.
All right, but this is not the first time government has been tinkering with this. This last administration, there was a committee set up headed by Payim to take a look at this. So really, what is blocking it? Because you come up with the implementations and the recommendations, and they are not implemented.
Well, just like you have said earlier, that there is procedure, there are laws. Most of these institutions are creation of law. Therefore, changing them may require law, So the Yar'Adua administration came on board and said, perhaps the previous administration did not follow due process, and therefore they want to follow due process. So there are so many things that could block an idea coming out. There are those who,
according to the JAM, the head of the JAM boss, that what we have now today, this harmonization, was part of the recommendation made by this committee headed by Pius Ayim. So really, this, or perhaps, maybe there's more to come.
Well, we are looking for better things to come. But let me quickly address the issue of manpower. You see, as of today, you cannot even move from lecturer 1 to senior lecturer in my own polytechnic without a higher degree. So the question of how will they train people with masters with their own first degree is not also correct. So to even gain employment into my own institution as of today, as lecturer 3, you need a degree. That is part of the problem that government has even created.
That's
okay.
Because
even
those that we
continue
produce,
with that,
those
really.
that we produce, we employ them as technologists.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast, and this morning we are talking about the dichotomy or the discrimination between holders of H.N.D and those who have B.Sc degrees from polytechnics and universities respectively. And we have in the studio the Deputy Rector Admin, Yaba College of Technology, Marufa Dibaki, and on phone is Dr. Dan Ekere of the University of Lagos. Now, let me come to you, Maruf. We have seen instances where many polytechnics run courses in humanities, run courses in social sciences, as the case may be. Even public administration, issues like mass communication. Is that a deviation or a contravention of the original design and plan for polytechnics?
No, it is not. It is not, because from inception, polytechnics have been offering courses in accountancy, in business management, and so on. So it's not necessarily a deviation. It's just that we have more concentration on technology and science-based courses than those humanities. But even in the so-called universities of technology, you still have them running courses in some of those humanities that you say. So we lay more emphasis on engineering, technology, science-based courses than those humanities. But it's not a division.
All right, let's bring Dan here to respond to this and also respond to what Maruf said earlier about the quality of lecturers that you have, the polytechnics and the universities. We know that sometimes you have a lecturer assistant, lecturer 1, lecturer 2. Some of them, perhaps a first degree holder in the university can become a lecturer, an assistant lecturer in the university, and perhaps a very good one at the H.N.D level can also turn a lecturer. Does that really affect the quality of the student churn out at these institutions?
Well, I don't want to look at it from the point of view of, okay, look at the quality of students turnout and all of that. But I'm just looking at it from the point of view of the qualification of those who will handle the various programs, the courses. I am saying that in Nigeria polytechnics today, I don't know how many professors you have in the polytechnics. I don't know how many. And I've not been hearing of Professor this, Professor that in social polytechnic. All right? I'm not saying that one person is more learned than the other. That is not the issue. But at least by virtue of training and certification, I do know that those in the university, the standard in terms of entry is higher. You could find somebody who is a lecturer 1 and a lecturer 2, all right, in the university, who is a PhD holder. But you will find the same person in the polytechnic who might not be a PhD holder. And I'm saying that as prominent, as important, as well respected as the Yaba College of Technology, you can count how many PhD holders are there. That is not to demean Yaba Tech. It is one of the most respected institutions in Nigeria. But how many PhD holders are there? And now you want to train PhD students, you should be a PhD holder yourself. These are going to be, so the moment you begin to upgrade your Yaba Tech to a university, you equally need to upgrade the lecturers themselves. That's the point I was trying to make. I'm not saying that they are not competent now. But it will not make sense that you hold a first degree and you want to train a PhD student. So these are going to be challenges when it comes to upgrading the institution. But there's nothing wrong with the upgrade, as a matter of fact, because at the moment, it is easier to upgrade these schools than to build a new one. Since there is this craze about going to universities, that everybody wants to go to the university, it will actually make a lot of sense if we upgrade some of these institutions. And that will mean that you equally liberalize the entry. People can now apply, come in, and join the system so that we have the requisite manpower to handle the situation.
All right, Dr. Ekere, let me focus on the quality of students churned out from this institution. From your perspective, a graduate of University of Lagos from the Department of Mass Communication, is he more equipped than a graduate of mass communication from having a H.N.D from Yaba College of Technology?
Well, interestingly, I'm not, I did study mass communication.
I'm just saying.
I need to be very, very clear on it. Now, you would have been in a better position to make that judgment because you are in the very environment where they need to show what they have acquired. So you should do the evaluation. Those who came from university, those who came from polytechnic, who is performing better? That's what it's difficult for me to say now. But the truth remains that the various institutions have their various programs, and I think none has been found worthy in his own respect. If you look at the first generation of our trained personnel in Nigeria, a lot of them passed through institutions like Yabatech, and that was what gave it its name. If they have not performed, the institutions will not have been so, celebrated. The same thing with the university. So I don't want to compare them on that note. But at the same time, you should equally know that we have individual differences. You might just find somebody who is intelligent, that the school that the person attends, somebody who is very intelligent attends Yabatech, who could do better than somebody who is dull or who is not as intelligent that attends the University of Lagos. You find such situation. You only find people who have pleasure in those areas that they have, they have studied. And such a person might just do better than they will be, irrespective of the institution the person attends. So I don't want to make a sweeping judgment on that, but I do want to think that there will always be that little, the disparity. You will always find it because the two institutions are different. And I do not think, because when you are saying the degree equivalent, you didn't say for a H.N.D equivalent. I've never heard it anywhere that, university is H.N.D equivalent. It is always from the other side that H.N.D is degree equivalent. So there is actually something in it. And the earlier we understand that, the better. Then those institutions that are due for elevation in terms of upgrade should be upgraded and will, this issue of And again, I think the workplace environment is equally very critical because it's part of the problem we are having. This discrimination, that you have this, you have that, whereas what you need is performance, is actually affecting us. So we are overemphasizing certificates and leaving the real issue of performance on the job. Nobody comes from the university as a B.Sc holder in accounting and just walk into a bank or any accounting firm and say it's an auditor. You will still go through the training. All right? Those things are important.
All right, Dr. Dan. Dr. Dan Ekere, thank you for talking to us on TVC Breakfast. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And before I let you go, generally, the issue of policy somersault in the Ministry of Education is really high. From the 6334 system of education at that level to tertiary institution, there has been quick somersaults of what impact are all of this having on the education system generally?
Well, thank you very much. It is not peculiar to education. Generally, in every sector, we've been having this challenge of policy somersault. Every new administration comes with the mind that I must do something different from what the previous administration has done. Even when the previous administration has performed excellently well, you still want to create the impression in the mind of an average Nigerian that that man was bad and I am better than that person. Therefore, whatever good that person has done has to be thrown into the dustbin, and then I start my own. So it's not peculiar to education, but now coming to education, of course, we know that it is affecting the system negatively, because before you nurture a particular policy to maturity, another administration has come, has dumped it, and is coming up with a different one. So just like 363, 34, 643, and so on and so forth. So it is affecting the progress of the sector. And I think the earlier we begin to know that previous administration may not necessarily be bad in all ramifications, the better for the system we belong to. But having said that, I want to also say that every system has particular titles that are peculiar to that system. If you are a PhD holder and you are teaching in a secondary school, there are so many PhD holders in the secondary schools. The highest you can get to is probably a director. If you're a PhD holder in a polytechnic or colleges of education, the highest you get to is a chief lecturer. If you're a PhD holder in a university, the highest you get to is a professor. Therefore, I don't expect to find a professor in the secondary school. I don't expect to find a chief lecturer in a university. So now saying that how many professors do you have there does not even come to count at all. I am saying that professor is a creation of recognition of your performance.
But if you teach in a university, upgraded, then
fine,
they can rise.
They can now rise, yes, because professor or professorial chair is peculiar to the university. So if polytechnics are upgraded, of course, you are expected, rather than now calling yourself a chief lecturer, if you have required qualification and you have performed wonderfully well academically, of course you will be awarded a professorial chair.
All right. Morofa Debakin, Deputy Rector, Admin, Yaba College of Technology. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.